Name of subject, internal combustion engines. Name of chapter, SI engines fuel supply system, ignition system, combustion. Name of topic, carburetor system to supply air and fuel mixture to the engine. Contents, carburetor system to supply air and fuel mixture to the engine. Dear friends, in the last few lectures, we already discussed about the basic fundamental introductory things about the internal combustion engines. We discussed the classification, types of engine, two-stroke, four-stroke, petrol engine, diesel engine, along with the different cycles of operation like Otto cycle and diesel cycle. Okay, so now we understood how engine can work along with the different engine components. That is nothing but piston, cylinder, connecting rod, crankshaft, camshaft, valve mechanisms, rocker arm, injector system in the case of diesel engine, etc. etc. Okay, now also we understood in the case of four-stroke engine, there are four stroke of the piston, that is suction, compression, expansion and exhaust, and in the case of two-stroke engine there are only two stroke, that is suction, compression happen simultaneously, expansion and exhaust will happen simultaneously. We already thoroughly understood all these things in the last few lectures or few videos of this particular subject, IC engines. Now today we are going to start to discuss a different fuel supply system for the SI engine. So as we know, SI engine is nothing but the spark ignition engine, that is a petrol or gasoline engine. Okay, so whenever we are going to use petrol as a fuel in the case of SI engine, it has some special features. The SI engine consisting or rather consisting, it required some specific system to supply the petrol inside the engine cylinder. That systems we are going to discuss. Okay. So in this case, one of the very important system which is to be used in the case of SI engine, and that system is nothing but called as a carburetor system. Okay, so we are going to understand the carburetor system. So generally, before going to understand the principle of a carburetor, we must have to discuss about what is the role or the function of a carburetor. Okay, so I think if we can take the example of two-wheeler. Okay, in the case of two-wheeler, near about the engine there is one more device like this one. Okay, please concentrate on the mouse indicator. Beside of engine there is a one device which is just look like this one. Okay, I think many of you have observed this particular device or this component which is always situated near the engine. Sometimes it is the above the engine cylinder or engine head, sometimes it is just beside the engine, but such kind of a device is always present in the case of two-wheeler specifically, and this device is nothing but called as a carburetor. Okay, so this is the picture of actual carburetor which look like this one, and this is the constructional working conceptual diagram of this carburetor. We will talk on this in detail later on. Okay, now in this video we are just going to discuss about what do you mean by the carburetor, its definition and its function. That's it. Okay, so this is the real carburetor and this is the construction details of the carburetor. So what do you mean by the carburetor? With the help of the notes, here we are going to understand. So as we know, the petrol is also called as a gasoline, which is one kind of a major fuel, or we can say this is the fuel which we can use in the case of spark ignition engines or petrol engines. Okay, so if anyone ask you one question to define the petrol, then how we can define the petrol? Petrol or gasoline is nothing but a mixture of various hydrocarbons such as paraffins, olefins, naphthenes, aromatics, etc. And the composition which depends upon the crude available and the method of refining used. Okay, so this is called the petrol. Generally, petrol or diesel are the product which we will get from the crude oil. Okay, so initially petrol, we are not directly getting the petrol or diesel. Okay, so there should be always some refineries are there, and through the refineries we have to get the petrol along with its properties. So how we can say this fuel is a petrol? Then what is the specialty of that particular fuel? So the mixture of various hydrocarbons like paraffins, olefin, naphthene, aromatics means in the mixture of petrol, these particular hydrocarbons like paraffins, olefin, naphthene, aromatics are always present, and this composition is nothing but called as a petrol. Similarly, this one, the diesel has another composition. Okay, so because of this all hydrocarbons, this fuel is called as a petrol or gasoline, which is always used in the case of SI engine or a petrol engine. Okay, so as we already discussed about, in the case of SI engine, during the process of suction, air fuel mixture comes inside the engine cylinder. Okay, so we know the air is fully available or freely available in the atmosphere, and fuel is coming from the fuel tank. Okay, so how that particular fuel and air mixes together and how that will be entering inside the engine cylinder during suction, that is to be very important to understand. Okay, so to understand this one, we must have to read the next definition, the process of carburation or only the carburation. Okay, so what is the meaning of carburation? So the process of formation of combustible air fuel mixture by mixing proper amount of fuel with air before admission to the engine cylinder is called the carburation or just process of carburation. Okay, what I said, the process of carburation is nothing but the formation of combustible mixture by mixing a proper amount of fuel with air. Okay, the combustible mixture means what? That mixture should be burned whenever the ignition taken place inside the engine cylinder. That mixture should be burned, and that mixture is nothing but called as a combustible mixture. And how that particular combustible mixture may prepare? That is nothing but by mixing a proper amount of fuel with a proper amount of air before admission to the engine cylinder. That is very important. Means before suction stroke, this mixing should be done, and that process is nothing but called as the process of carburation. And the next one, the device which does this job is known as the carburetor. So my dear friends, always remember, Carburetor is one kind of a device which is generally used to supply the proper amount of air and fuel combustible mixture to the engine cylinder during process of suction. So always, if you see in the case of two-wheeler, we have to use this device and the name is the carburetor. Okay, so always remember carburetor will supply the required amount of air and fuel mixture to the engine cylinder during suction stroke or during suction process. Okay, so just we discussed the process of carburation and the function or the definition of carburetor. So hope you understood this all things clearly about the process of carburetor and what is the role or the function of carburetor. Thank you so much for watching this video. Thanks a lot.